This is the story of Snæfellsjökull, a subglacial volcano on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula in Iceland. Not only is it a geological mystery, throughout time it has been the subject of writers, painters, folklore tales, and movies, and its source of inspiration extends far beyond Iceland. The famous novel, A Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, starts in one of the many lava caves, so adventurous that it became a classic, and not just as a novel, the fame reached all the way to Hollywood, that made it the subject of 5 movies and cartoons. But the fame didn't stop there. In 1983, the world press gathered by the volcano to welcome aliens, and that is no myth nor a novel, but a true story inspired by a volcano that hasn't even erupted since Iceland was settled over 1,000 years ago. So what kind of volcano is this? And how come that it has all this mysterious attraction? So welcome to Snæfellsjökull. Our journey starts with basic geology, and this is where the plate boundaries are constantly ripping Iceland apart. But here we have the western volcanic belt on the old Mantle Plume Trail, and geological diversity are the main characteristics of the peninsula that actually consists of 2 systems that roughly look like this. And we start with this one, taking off from this spot by the west coast, and we can see the peninsula and the glacier above the volcano, and this is a dreamland for geologists, nature lovers, photographers, and weirdos waiting for a spaceship. And some of the formations around look like from outer space, like the crater Eldborg, which is a part of the main volcanic system in the background. It's a fissure vent system and a central volcano about 90 kilometers long, and only a part of it is on the actual peninsula, and the rest of it belongs to the West District in Iceland, Borgarbyggð. And West Iceland contains many of our most hidden pearls. Snæfellsjökull has already got its fair share of attention, thanks to Jules Verne. But this part of the volcanic belt, we have to make it a part of our journey. Through all my many journeys in Iceland in 2022, it is the landscape here that took me by a total surprise. I did 3 trips into this valley called the Hítardalur and the surrounding landscape. And it's one of the trips when I was thinking I would have liked to have a geologist with me to explain what I was seeing, or the usual questions. What the heck is this? How did it come into being? And could it happen again? And in fact, this system is waking up again, like I have mentioned in some of my updates in 2022, while covering the odd earthquakes around here. However, experts say that we might have to wait for a long time until it actually erupts again. But the signs are telling us that we are indeed heading there. So I will of course cover this part of the peninsula way better later on. The system is very long and leaves me with plenty of good material for its own episode. But this is a larger picture around the peninsula. So let's move to the Snæfellsnes volcano and stay there for the rest of this video. Since the end of the last ice age, it's estimated that 20 eruptions have occurred in and around the volcano. One of the last eruptions in the summit crater occurred around 1700 years ago, and it might have been the largest eruption since after the ice age, and the landscape on the peninsula is strongly shaped by that event. This is a stratovolcano layer cake that our experts have been mapping little by little, and as far as I can read from science reports, not all the lava fields have been carbon dated yet, so way more studies are indeed needed. And as usual, it's all about money. We have this big island with many volcanoes, but only a little science community to handle all this work. I did, however, find out that in 2015, the peninsula was studied with regard to tremors, and an Icelandic volcanologist told us that the outcome could be interpreted as moving magma, although it is not enough to be detected on the ordinary seismometers. It is, however, telling us that those systems are active. And it was only in 2020 when 3 modern seismic stations were placed along the peninsula. So it's only now that we can get accurate readings. But they don't show much. But I do have to mention though, that in 2022, a strange earthquake swarm was detected like 50 kilometers west from the volcano on the seabed. And strangely enough, scientists mentioned, while telling us about this strange swarm, that there was indeed a tsunami risk around there, since we only have the Bay Faxi between the Snæfellsnes Peninsula and Reykjavik. And Reykjavik is only a few meters above sea level. And this is the south side of the volcano, where we even have these formations like ropes. And signs of ancient pyroclastic flows can be found there. So technically speaking, our experts are saying that a disastrous or explosive eruption could lead to a pyroclastic flow into the sea, sending a tsunami over the bay. It is, however, considered to be highly unlikely. So I did not see a reason to do a video about that report from our geologists. And here we can see the top crater and the landscape around the volcano, which is extremely diverse. This is one of the places where I could stay for days with the drone. Fly all day, always seeing something new to put on the flight plan for the next takeoff. And this is one of our most photogenic volcanoes, especially seen from Reykjavik, like when the sun sets in the top crater. And when one of our professors in volcanology was asked a few years ago, will Snæfellsjökull erupt again? He replied that it's almost 100%. I also found out that geothermal energy is actually hard to find on the westernmost part of the peninsula. And strangely enough, it's categorized as a cold area by the energy companies. Possible explanations could be that the magma chamber and old and cooling magma intrusions are so deep down, so the people around here have to heat their houses with electricity, which is considered a major drawback when it comes to the quality of life in the countryside. Hot water is like finding gold or oil, but the lack of hot water is not enough reason to move away, since the complete peninsula is a wonderful place. And it's hard to figure out what it is with it. This is just one of the places where many people sense something different. So the glacier has for long acted as a magnet that attracts creative people, thinking people, spiritually seeking people, and idiots. There are many people who claim that this is one of the 7 most potent energy sources on Earth that represent the heart chakra of planet Earth. So the volcano and the glacier has been an endless source of mysticism and mystery. It is also a mystery what made Jules Verne use this volcano as his main storyboard in the book that was published in 1864. And back then, there was hardly any tourism in Iceland. For tourists back then, the Icelandic countryside was like going into a time machine to the dark Middle Ages. And as tourists got out of Reykjavik, they found little else than literally dirt-poor farmers, half buried into the ground in turf houses, and the only method to store food was pickling, fermentation, drying of fish, and smoking. And I can't imagine how those houses smelled, and very little encouragement for tourists to travel outside the city unless they brought their own food and a nose clip to handle the country homes. And you can read about this in some of the oldest travel books about Iceland, since many of them are just as brutally honest as my channel. And to say that the few remaining turf houses that we have now are reflecting the living standards back then is like saying that Buckingham Palace reflected the general living conditions in the UK in the 1800s. Dirt-poor nation is what we were back then. And the few Icelandic names in this famous novel of Jules Verne are telling us that he never came here, and his sources were not so strong. So I can only guess that his inspiration came from another stratovolcano called Hekla, since Hekla had this horrible reputation in Europe. But Jules might have picked Snæfellsjökull to stay away from cliches. And Snæfellsjökull is the only stratovolcano that can be seen from the city. So its name could easily be picked up and passed on to duels. But what he got right, however, are the lava caves around the volcano. They are for real, but the local tourist board does not recommend that you try to find the center of the earth from them. But I did some browsing through the Icelandic newspaper database or to see what I would come up with, and this mysticism was present long before the book was published in Iceland. That wasn't until 1943, and before that time, when Icelanders read this book, many newspaper articles full of poetic descriptions mentioning the glacier and the volcano as a symbol of the power that never fades, and so on. So Jules Verne, he only helped, but he's not the main reason for how famous this volcano is. And it's plenty to work from when it comes to myths, and some of them are easier to work with than others, like the sparkling mineral water, straight from the ground, or what it does for people. Legend has it that many worked for days to get to this mineral spring, to bring the water home for health benefits. But today, people go there by car to do the same thing, or to bring home this mystical mineral water. And as for me, I love to drive around Snæfellsnes. It's just something in the air. However, I'm not going to make the reason why too complicated for me and others, and I can only understand it up to a limit. The only thing we know for sure is that we are by a volcano, and there is magma on the move somewhere under us. So this is a good time to talk about a question I get quite often from our viewers, especially when I'm sharing some unfolding volcano drama stories, or how come that we Icelanders live so near volcanoes. I mean, can't we find a better place? Especially when things are like they are. For example, on the Volcanic Peninsula, where we have a town on the verge of evacuation 2 times in 2 years. So it is a good question. Why are we so close? But it is, of course, energy that keeps us near the volcanoes. But, of course, the more tangible energy sources, like the hot water or the steam to drive the turbines. But in some cases, it is like here, or just something we can't explain. And perhaps my viewers in Hawaii can share their thoughts about this with us Icelanders. After all, both of us are living on hotspots. So this question has made me wonder, has it been studied whether proximity to volcanoes has any effects on the population? And I'm not talking about previously studied factors such as fear or air pollution. I'm just wondering, can it be that entire towns or cities show signs of more energy, vitality and such when situated near volcanoes? And if such energy exists, is it helping with creativity? And looking at the more recent myths in Iceland, some say that Snæfellsjökull and its proximity to Reykjavík is one of the reasons how energetic the city really is. And I've heard this from many Icelanders. It might even be the reason why people either love or hate the city. I can swing between both sides, depending on the tasks I'm working with at any given time. Reykjavík is a great city to get things done, make things move, but it's also very good to get out of it. And the craziness, the traffic, and go to the countryside to talk to the sheep, like to Snæfellsnes, which is considered to be the best place in Iceland to talk to sheep. And this was of course shot in one of those trips when the magic happens. So is it magic or is it just a myth? The volcano reached its peak of fame in 1993 when it was announced that aliens would land on the peninsula November 5th, 7 minutes past 9 in the evening. We didn't have social media back then, but we didn't need them. The story went viral anyway, and we Icelanders love good stories. It's all we had while living in turf houses. Stories and imagination, and the best stories are those you can't make up. So November 5th, 1993, 500 people gathered there from all over the world, but it was a man from the UK that brought this message to the world. And we hadn't seen as many foreign journalists in Iceland since Reagan and Gorbachev met in Reykjavik. Even CNN was there, doing live broadcast from the landing site. And as we got closer to the big moment, hundreds of people held hands, sang and smiled, even though it was cold and snowy. And 7 minutes past 9, the minute of galactic invasion, the aliens didn't show up. And what a bummer. However, despite the lack of galactic invasion, the incident shows the strange significance of Snæfellsjökull to many, and those who planned the landing later explained, after conversations with the aliens, that there were just so many people present that it was shyness that prevented the landing. So we know it now, that aliens are shy. However, it might just be that the cosmos was just trying to send us a message, trying to get some great truth to us. Truth like this magnificent landing place might be the best place in Iceland to build a mental institution, and we sure need more of them. And this is more or less the story of Snæfellsjökull on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, perhaps one of our most underrated tourist destinations. I will, however, show you more of the peninsula very soon, since during my last trip I shot videos from 5 villages, and many of the stories have a strong connection with the volcano and the glacier on top of it. So feel free to subscribe for what is to come in 2023 about this mystical peninsula. And with that, I'm sending you my best regards from the volcano island, Iceland.